on all of that. To Brandon Arnold, the National Taxpayer Union. Brandon, I know your view has been, let's just try to get something done. That doesn't look likely. Now, a lot of people, especially, taxpayers, might look at that and say, well, we saved some money here. But it's not about just saving money on a government push to provide support for those dealing with the COVID-19 fallout, right? It's not that black and white.
No, it's certainly not that black and white. And let me bring a little bit of optimism to this conversation, because I think it's easy to see some negative signs pop up, Congress hitting some hurdles, and get discouraged here. I think there's still a pretty good chance that we can get a bill done by the end of next week, when Congress probably wraps up for the year. And listen, when tax reform was being debated a few years ago, it died 100 deaths during the course of that debate. People said, oh, this doesn't have a chance. Then they brought it back. Then it said it died again. I think a similar thing is happening here, and nothing gets Congress working quite like a deadline, particularly a deadline to go home for the holidays. And I think there is enough will on Capitol Hill that we still have. I'm not saying it's 100%, nowhere near 100%, but I still think we have a respectable chance of getting maybe a slimmed down version of what they're talking about now, but getting a COVID relief package done, because God knows the country needs it right now.
Now, I'd love you to be right, but you're much younger than I am, so I'm going to be an old fogey who's cynical, and here's why. They've come close so many times, and for the last 6 months or so, unable to bridge what sometimes we're in very big differences. I know the election is over, but I also know how it continues to play with Democrats waiting for Joe Biden to come in, Republicans reluctant to do anything that might tick off Mitch McConnell. So there are a lot of layers of palace intrigue here, where Republicans might be waiting to say all of this will be on the Biden folks in the new administration. Let's see what they do. And, Democrats saying, well, let's not give any credit to this president as he leaves on the way out. But how much of a factor is that in your eyes?
That is absolutely a factor. But think of it this way. Democrats are about to increase their amount of clout on Capitol Hill, and as well as with Biden taking over as president. So the Republicans have an incentive to get a bill done that's more modest in nature. You talked earlier about the $2.4 trillion package that is Pelosi's dream list. And of course, that included dozens and dozens of programs that have nothing to do with COVID whatsoever. Billions and billions of dollars of spending that was unnecessary here.
Brandon, on that, I didn't want to interrupt you, but there isn't a thought that even a package loaded with a lot of nonsense, which I think you were touching on with some of the things that Nancy Pelosi was first looking at, it's better than nothing. Do you subscribe to that a loaded package with stuff that has no COVID-19 connection or relief is still better than one that has zero relief?
Well, I think the $2.5 trillion package that Pelosi put together is going way too far. And that's causing long-term problems that our nation's going to eventually have to deal with in terms of a much, much higher debt. We already have a debt north of $20 trillion. We can't afford a package that large unless we were to absolutely need it. I don't think we do. We need a more modest, slim package here that takes care of displaced workers, that maybe has a little bit of funding for state and local governments. I'm pretty skeptical of that myself, but I think it's a reasonable negotiating point for Republicans to bring to the table in order to get liability protections, in order to get an expansion and extension of the Paycheck Protection Program, which is absolutely essential for small businesses that are getting hit pretty hard now and are really, really going to get clobbered throughout this winter, as we've seen caseloads increase and we've seen increased number of restrictions on these small businesses that have been very, very devastating. So let's keep our eye on the prize here. And I think that is the small business relief and aid to displaced workers. The liability protections, I think, are as important as well. But, of course, those can take place at the state level if we're not able to get those in this package. In fact, 9 states have enacted liability protections. They don't really cost anything. So states should be working on those just in case the federal government can't get it done here in Washington.
All right. And you're still optimistic, so I'll stay optimistic that something gets done. Brandon, thank you. Always good seeing you. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. Brandon Arnold, the National Taxpayers Union. Now, as Brandon was